I'm gonna do something I almost never do here at the range. You guys see me all the time. If I'm at the range, I have my first aid kit on my person. It sits back behind me. I do have my ankle first aid kit on me though, with me like I always do. And so we're gonna work on some seated stuff here, and it would be weird to have this back behind me, so I'm gonna take it off. Many thanks to Magtech Ammunition, the sponsor of today's active self-protection lesson. It's the only ammo I put through my rifles or pistols at the range. I want to talk to you about something today we don't get to see very often in classes. You don't get to do very often. You probably get to do this more in dry fire than in live fire. But you're not always standing up. You know, when we're at the square range, we tend to get this thing here where, okay, I'm here, hands are up, hey man, don't, leave me alone and all that stuff. And we see a lot of defensive shootings on the channel that start in this kind of, standing posture. But I see a lot of people at restaurants that get victimized and they start seated here. So in particular, how do I get a gun out and in the fight when I start the conflict seated? So if I am going to, get after a target here, and I'm just shooting B8s at this particular point. And again, what's my big thing? I have to clear my cover garment up to my sternum, get a firm firing grip on the gun. In this case, we talk about the claw grip all the time. Great, gun comes out, gets out on target, gets the shots that I need. Boom, 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 boom. I get the shots that I need. I want to make sure that I have enough ammo in the gun. I do. Good. Okay. However, what does that change with respect to being seated? Really, I want to show you two techniques today in terms of what you need to do to change things a tiny bit if you're in a seated position. So here we are. Maybe we're eating lunch. Maybe we're sitting in our car. Whatever way we are that we are sitting here. Now, I can sit flat-footed and those kind of things. Now, I understand this is where people are going to say, but John, you are carrying appendix and you are pointing a gun at your junk. Let's sing another chorus of holstered guns are not pointed, okay? A holstered gun is not pointed any more than a cased gun is pointed. However, the second that I start withdrawing that gun, now it's in my hand and now it's pointed. So if I'm carrying appendix, I'm going to have to kick my hips forward a little bit. So I use my shoulders to pressure against the back of the chair if I'm going to stay seated. What that does is with the wedge on the gun, I can feel right here now the muzzle of the firearm is pointed away from my nether region. So God forbid something bad happens, it happens into the floor and not into my femoral artery. Okay, so once again, I'm sitting here just fine. I kick my shoulders back, go and get the gun, drive the gun out, and then do everything that I need to do. Now again, from here, can I sit like this with my feet firmly on the floor, set my butt down, get my gun out, drive it? Well, let's go look and see how we did at that. If you see, that corresponding to a heart shot, no problems. So again, when it's time to go, I get a hold of my shirt just like I normally would, lift that to the same place I normally would, kick my hips out so that the muzzle is beyond. I'm actually torquing this just a little bit, give me a little bit more margin for error. Gun comes out, drives out on target, see my shot, get my shot. Okay, cool. Now I will say this. When it's time to reholster the gun, what I really want is very difficult to do this from a seated position. I'll show you how to do it in a minute if you have to. However, I would much rather, if at all possible, whether I got to pop this door because I'm in a car or I just got to stand up because I'm in the restaurant. I'm not going to stand still. I do all my follow-up that I need to do. Stand up to kick my hips way forward to safely put the firearm away. That's my preferred method. Get up first. Now, if I have to, let's just say that we're out here, we do our work, and we have to, for whatever reason, stay seated. We're stuck in a booth. We're just stuck in our spot. However that goes. We can reholster seated, but I want you to be so careful with this, okay? This is not something I would ever do on the range as a general rule, just because it's hard to do effectively. Okay, so what I really want to do at this point is I really want my hips to get forward. I want to get as much forward as I can, and I want to make sure that holster is completely clear. Press that in, like I've said. Don't point the gun at yourself. Make sure your thumb is over, and you're very careful to not point it at yourself while you do that. Now, do you notice how many qualifiers I put on that? How much extra time, how many extra steps that I had to do? That's why I don't recommend you do it. Stand up instead. A second method, if you have the space to do this, was taught to me by Tatiana Whitlock at TACCon this year in her class on seated targets and those kind of things, is again, I'm saying here that I'm facing the target. We'll talk about not facing the target in a minute. But one of the things that she was really good about and was really cool to see is actually using my body to press this chair the heck out of the way. So if I'm here and I've got, my feet flat firmly on the ground, my legs are in front of me, I'm not man spreading or whatever, I'm not doing that that thing, that I can go, oh no, it's time to get a gun out, and I want to clear this chair and get up. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to stand and kick to get that chair out of my way. So then that way I'm still in my fighting stance, then get the gun out. Now I'm in a standing position. I'm in my square range position like I've done. So let's see that a little quicker. This is actually where kind of martial arts comes in. This is a little martial artsy. And again, if I'm sitting with my back in the chair, as I get up, what I'm actually doing here is I'm going to plant just a little bit with my support side foot. And as I get up from the chair, I'm actually going to use my strong side foot and press this back. Us in derivatives of Kempo, my rank is in a derivative of Kempo known as Umasu. You would know this as a forward bow. So I'm going to kick back here to get that chair the heck out of my way and clear it, and then end up with my toes pointed towards my target in a forward bow with my hips and shoulders forward. Now, what does this look like at this point? Looks exactly like my normal draw stroke, so I can get out and do everything that I need to do. So if I did the whole thing, everything's settled, I'm sitting in the back of the chair, I go. So once I get that chair going, guess what? Everything is the same. So that's helpful. Carefully reholster. Now let's set some things. Now here's where things start getting a little squirrely. So now what I have done is I am in probably the worst place, which is my dominant side, which is my left side, facing away, it's the farthest from my targets, which are here. So what am I going to have to do here? Well, I'm going to have to get the gun out, drive over to my target, and see it, point my shoulders at it, even if I can't move my hips necessarily, get over, drive towards my target, and go. But what do I not want to do? I don't want to point guns at me, and I don't want to point guns at my cameraman. Okay? And I don't want to point guns at all my family that's in here. This one gets a little bit tricky, so I want you to watch how you're doing this, okay? So this is one that if we do on the range and we do in live fire, we have to be very careful with. It has to be a lot of control and usually not a lot of students at a time. You can do this at your own, in your house, in your dry fire, as long as you cleared your guns and everything looks good, right? Okay, so what's my easiest path? Well, the easiest path is what we just saw earlier when we were checking and we were going, right? But I'm going to change this just a little bit, again, if I'm not man-spreading here. So I'm going to clear this chair now with my support side leg. And how am I going to do that? I see that challenge. I'm going to stand as I go to get the gun, kick this out to the side. That got it away from me. Now everything is just as normal. I get my shots like I need to. Okay, fine. God forbid I have to stay here. Now, why might I have to stay here? Well, maybe I'm sitting in my car. I'm seatbelted in. I can't get out of the way here, right? I can't kick my car seat out because I bumped my head on the cover on the roof of my car. So guess what? Now, when would somebody be over there? Oh, I don't know. They're at the passenger window and pointing a gun at your spouse. Okay, cool. Don't want to point a gun at me. Don't want to point a gun at my spouse. Don't want to break the 180. So again, I'm going to do the same things that I've talked about earlier. I am going to kick my hips out. So then that way I got some space. Now notice again, that clears that there. Watch my muzzle now. It sets out of the gun, and the second it clears the gun, it's not pointing at me. Okay, it's not pointing at me. It's pointing about 2 feet out in the ground in front of me, so that then as I come back and start to square my shoulders, the muzzle never covers my leg. I get 2 hands on the gun, turn over to it. Now I kind of have here what we would kind of call a weaver, right? So this is kind of a, this arm, maybe even a Chapman, pressing out here and seeing that, and this arm's back. Now, if I have the space to do that, I'd prefer to press back against this and turn my hips. Because then if I turn my hips in, this is more normally what I'm doing with my ISO. May not be able to, again, for whatever reason, but can I get good shots from here? Of course I can. Can I get better ones here and control the recoil better? Yes, I can. When it's time to put the gun back away, we want to do the same thing. So I keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, stand up. In this case, I'm going to reload because I need some more ammo. And now we safely holster. Let's try the other side, shall we? So again, that same thing here. This might be out my driver's side window, or if I am the passenger, well, the driver's side window regardless, but if I am the passenger, guess what? I have the same problems here that I have to go this way. Now, the only thing that I don't have to do here is I don't have to recognize that it's my strong hand, it's my support hand that's going to be pressed way out. So if I'm going towards my dominant side, which me is left, you was probably right if you're like, 85% of the population. However, for those of us who are left-handed, when I'm the driver, this is the hardest one for me. And the reason it's the hardest one for me is because I want to get this gun pressed out if I can, but it's going to put it out the window. And if my window's rolled up especially, that's going to be impossible, or it puts it out where the bad guy is, where he can grab a hold of it. So this is the one where, again, I'm going to kick the hips out to the side. Gun comes out, does not point at me. does not point at me. As the gun comes out, I really want to kick my hips and shoulders back, see what I've got, get as much as I can, and get the shots that I need to get. Now you notice I'm having a little bit of a harder time getting those shots quickly. That's going to be the reality of things when you're going towards your strong side. Now I might instead keep that gun in here and go single-handed only shots, so then that way I am able to kind of control or see where somebody else is here or whatever. But what I really want to do is back way off of this if I can. Again, kicking myself maybe over my console of my vehicle. Now I've got the same thing that I'm used to. Now I'm just doing what I'm regularly used to doing, and it's no big deal. So, seated draw, is that something that we can do? It is something that you can do. It's not something that you probably are going to get to do at a public range. They're not going to probably let you do that, but you can do it in your dry fire all day as you want. I think it's a very helpful thing to get a little familiarity with. Kick yourself out of that chair if you can, and get up and get after it. But if you can't, that'll help you at least a little bit as you're drawing your gun.